this is Catherine from Accelerated Reader. Today I'm going to be reading That's Not Right. I hope you enjoy it. Ellie's class was writing stories about animals. Ellie chose a bug. This is what Ellie wrote. Ellie's story. Once there was a bug. His name was Fred. He lived under a shoe. One day, Fred came out. A big shoe stamped down and squashed him. Splat! Fred was dead. The end. Ellie read the story to her teacher. What a sad story, the teacher said. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, said Ellie. So it does, her teacher agreed. Ellie read the story to her brother. That's a funny story, he laughed. Ellie read the story to her mom. What a strange story, Ellie, said her mom. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end, said Ellie proudly. Her mom smiled. Very good, Ellie, she said. That evening, the moon was full and bright. It was like a giant eye. Ellie sat on the front step to look at it. The moon winked at her. Something moved on the path in front of Ellie. Excuse me, said a tiny voice, but that's not right. Ellie looked down and saw a sow bug. I heard your story, said the sow bug, and I didn't like it. Oh, said Ellie, what was wrong? It wasn't very nice, said the sow bug. Some of my best friends are bugs. Oh, I'm sorry, said Ellie. I didn't mean to upset you. What kind of bug was it anyway? Asked the sow bug. One like you, said Ellie, a sow bug. I am not really a bug, hissed the sow bug. His antenna waggled crossly. A bug is a kind of insect. Insects have 6 legs. I have 7 pairs of legs. I am a crustacean, if you must know, like a lobster or a crab. Oh, said Ellie, you don't look like a crab. Perhaps not, agreed the sow bug, but I do have a hard shell-like body. Lift me up and see. Ellie put her hand on the ground and the sow bug crawled onto it. She gazed at the sow bug. Its body looked a bit like great armor. I see what you mean, she said. The sow bug tapped his antenna against her hand. Now listen, he said. I'll tell you the story. Fred's story. There was once a handsome sow bug called Fred. He had the finest antenna you ever did see. He lived under a large, cool stone in the garden. His home was dark and damp and lovely. One day, Fred was hungry. He crawled out of his house to look for food. Suddenly, a big, bully shoe stamped down and tried to squash him. But Fred was too clever and too quick. He curled up in a ball and rolled away. Then he crawled back under his cool stone and lived happily ever after. The end. I like that story, said Ellie. There's nothing like a happy ending, purred Fred. Something else moved in the bush beside Ellie. That's not right, a little voice hissed. It was another sow bug. Hello, said Ellie. Who are you? I'm Mrs. Fred, said the sow bug. I'm Fred's wife. She waggled her antenna. That story just won't do at all. she snorted. A good story needs more than one character. How could my dear darling Freddie live happily ever after without someone to love? Someone like you? Said Ellie. That's right, said Mrs. Fred. Now, dearie, you listen to me. Mrs. Fred's story. Once upon a time, and not so very far away, there lived a lovely sow-bug named Fred. Oh, he was handsome. His antennae were as fine could be. But Fred was not happy. He was all alone in the world. If only I had someone to love, he said sadly to himself. Well, one day Fred came out from under his stone to look for food. And what did he spy? Why, a beautiful lady sow-bug. It was love at first sight. Fred crawled toward her, but then, oh, something terrible happened. A monster shoe appeared. It stamped down and tried to squash poor Fred. Look out! Cried the beautiful lady sow-bug. Now, luckily, Fred was clever and Fred was quick. In a flash, he curled up in a ball and rolled away. Wham bam! The shoe stamped down on the stone. Ow! The stone was sharp and cut the shoe. The shoe limped away. Fred scuttled to his love. Will you marry me? He asked. Of course, my darling, said the beautiful lady sow-bug. They got married right away and lived happily ever after. The end. It's true, sighed Fred. It was love at first sight. Fred and Mrs. Fred rubbed antennae. What a lovely story, said Ellie. It is very romantic. Stamp, stamp. That's not right, cried an angry voice. That story is garbage. Ellie looked around and frowned. Who said that? She asked. I did, said an old blue shoe lying on the path. It looked grumpy, as if its laces were in a knot. I'm not a bully or a monster. Why should I be the bad one in the story? It's not fair. No one cares about my feelings. You should see the things from my point of view, said the shoe. How would you like to be cut by a sharp stone? Well, I wouldn't, said Ellie. But I wouldn't like to be squashed flat either. That's right, agreed Fred and Mrs. Fred. It's not my fault. It's the person who wears me who's to blame, argued the shoe. Anyway, who cares about creepy crawlies? They're all pests. He stuck out his tongue at Fred and Mrs. Fred. Not true, cried Mrs. Fred. We are not pests. We are good for the garden. Yes, Fred added. We eat dead plants and vegetable peels. Then they come out the other end in our poo and feed the soil, which helps new plants grow. That's right, dear, Mrs. Fred agreed proudly. People recycle bottles and cans. We recycle nature. Yum, yum. I didn't know that, said Ellie. That is good. The shoe shuffled impatiently. Why don't you tell us your story, said Ellie. About time, too, said the shoe. The shoe's story. One day, a big, blue, beautiful, shiny new shoe was walking in the garden. He had just been given a new pair of striped laces, and he was feeling very happy. Suddenly, a silly sow-bug came out without looking right in front of him. The shoe tried to pull back, but it was too late. Down he went. The sow bug curled into a ball and rolled away. The shoe landed on a sharp stone. Ow! Shrieked the shoe. It was badly hurt. The sow bug got away without a scratch, but the poor, brave shoe had a big cut and lots of scuffs. He had to go to the cobbler to be mended, but he was never the same again, and his fine striped laces were given to another pair of shoes. The end. That is a sad story, said Ellie. I think the shoe got just what he deserved, said Fred. I agree, dear, said Mrs. Fred. Big bully. And with that, the two sow bugs disappeared. Insects, tootled the shoe. They're not insects, Ellie corrected him. They're a kind of crustacean, like crabs. Oh, really? Huffed the shoe, and that was his last word. The full moon winked again. Supper time, Ellie, called Ellie's mom. That evening, before bed, Ellie wrote a new story. A talking sow bug, said her brother. A grumpy pulley shoe, said her mom. What a crazy story, they cried. But it's true, said Ellie. The end. That's not right. The moon. Put on Ellie's storyteller shoes. Listen to how each of the characters in Ellie's tale tells the story. How is each one's version different? Look at how the characters are pictured. Did you notice how they don't always look the same? Why? Can you tell the story from the moon's point of view? What kind of character do you think the moon might be? Helpful? Wise? Boastful? Tell a friend about what you did at recess today. Now, pretend you are an ant or the slide in the playground and tell the same story. How would it sound? Make a sow bug home and observe. Find a sow bug under a stone or log outside. Place about 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters of damp soil in an empty shoebox. Put a piece of wood on top of the soil. Add some twigs and dead leaves. Next, put your sow bug inside. Make small holes in the lid of the box. Spray the soil with water and cover. Check your sow bug home every day. Spray it with water, but don't make it too wet. After a few days, return your sow bug to nature. Does your sow bug like light or shade? What does it eat? Watch it walk. Sow bug poo makes good plant food. The end. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what books you'd like for me to read next. As always, thank you for listening.